Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, Shane Beamer, South Carolina, getting it done against South Carolina State. But to the South Carolina fans that watched every single snap of this football game, to the South Carolina fans that follow this program 12 months out of a year, I don't think a lot of South Carolina fans are sitting here on a Sunday afternoon and feeling good about what we saw last night, specifically on the offensive side of the football. Now, Dill, if I were to sunshine pump a little bit, of which I've been noted to do a little bit, the defense, much better than what we thought this defense was going to be in 2025. I cannot tell you how pleased I am specifically with the front seven. You got a disruptive defensive line. You got linebackers that fly around the football field and find the football. Look, I'm leaving the first 2 weeks of the season saying, hey, that South Carolina defense, I think they can be a problem for a lot of the teams on their schedule. But the South Carolina offense, we have a lot to figure out. And, I'm on the message boards with a lot of the South Carolina fans, right? There are some that are very frustrated with Mike Shula. There are some that are very frustrated with the offensive line. I think for a lot of South Carolina fans, we're frustrated with all of it, right? I don't think Mike Shula is doing a good enough job getting South Carolina to some easy plays on offense. But I'll say this, there's no reason this South Carolina offense can't run base and just move the football against South Carolina State. We shouldn't have to get creative with the play calling to have success against a football team like this. And Dill, it starts with the run game. It starts with this offensive line moving bodies off the line of scrimmage, because I thought they were okay in pass protection. But we are finding ourselves behind the chains consistently with this South Carolina offense. I'm looking at 3 of 12 on third down and say it's directly correlated to first and second down success. A lot to clean up. Want to get into what we need to see get cleaned up before we do. And as always, to the South Carolina fans, number one, and I many of y'all probably can sense the frustration in my voice. That's because I'm rooting for South Carolina. And I want to see them be the team that I think they can be in 2025. So I'm not trying to be super negative, just trying to hold them to the standard that I think they can play with, or play to, I should say. Appreciate you guys. Would love to hear how you guys are feeling in the comments section. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And Dill, it's not all bad. I got some things in my note sheet that are good as well, but I'm going to give you the T-box. We rewatched the South Carolina offense this morning. The biggest takeaways, the biggest things we got to do a better job in going into week 3 against Vanderbilt.
I mean, it's pretty simple. I think it's moving guys off the ball. You play Virginia Tech, you play South Carolina State. Both defensive lines, I don't think, have the talent that they should be giving this South Carolina offensive line the amount of problems they are, especially in terms of just pure straight up physicality. It's just hard to play offense when you can't run the ball at all. And they just haven't found any consistency running the football at all over these past couple of games.
Yeah, and Dill, against Virginia Tech, I thought it was just really choppy. I thought it was you look at a play and say, hey, a couple of guys are doing their job moving bodies, and then we're blowing 2 or 3 blocks. Against South Carolina State, and here's the caveat. I mean, South Carolina, their first 3 or 4 possessions, they started inside their own 20. I think in a couple of cases inside their own 10. So it's hard to get super creative. It's hard to get super aggressive when you're given that kind of field position to start. I'm still with you. If this South Carolina team becomes a college football playoff caliber team, of which I think they can be, especially because of what I've seen from this defense the first 2 weeks, we have to be able to lean on the run game. And Dill, that might require getting LaNorris Sellers involved a little bit. We know he can throw the football, but he's at his best when he's also being an athlete. There is not a quarterback in the country who is more dynamic with the football in his hands than LaNorris Sellers. And I think when you see him play his best football, he's normally getting involved with his legs. And look, I get there's that fine line to walk with, hey, he's a really good quarterback. We want to keep him healthy, but we also want to utilize him in the run game. To me, when you get into SEC play, and if you're still struggling to run the football, LaNorris Sellers has to be a little bit more of a factor in terms of what South Carolina is trying to do, trying to run the football, I should say.
And you probably use the Oklahoma team as a bit of a blueprint, because they're kind of an interesting one where they a lot of trouble running the ball with their running back strictly, but John Mateer's been really effective with his legs. So you're probably right. Because again, however they got to do it, maybe their offensive line just starts making it happen a little bit more and
Yeah.
they don't need to run LaNorris Sellers 20 times a game. But if that's not going to happen, then you're going to have to find some way to manufacture something on the ground. And that is probably where you need to get creative because at the end of the day, it can't be like this where you're in 2nd and 10 and 3rd and long pretty much every
Yeah,
snap.
and we have to see. I think the offensive line just needs to take a step. And again, I will say this: I think this is correctable, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'll just go down the ship with this. In years past, the offensive line was downright bad, and it's not like you couldn't just snap your fingers and get new offensive linemen in the middle of the season. Like there was a very little optimism that it got better. I'm looking at this offensive line and say, all right, I've seen Josiah Thompson play really good football. I've seen Casey Henry play really good football. I thought Trevon Baugh was very, very good against Virginia Tech. I thought he was very bad against South Carolina State. And so I'm looking at it and saying, I know these guys can play, but we have to have them all just be a little bit more consistent every single Saturday. And if you get that and you get this offense winning on 1st and 2nd down, staying in those 3rd and manageable situations, this is a very hard offense to get off the field with what LaNorris Sellers can do being a dual threat. But when you sit in those 3rd and obvious passing situations, it becomes a little bit easier of a team to get after. Dill, let's talk about LaNorris Sellers really quick. I don't think it was very good from him. And here's the thing that frustrates me the most is we seem really unsettled in the pocket. I don't think the pass protection was not elite, right? But I don't think it was all that bad either. And I think LaNorris Sellers is not doing a very good job staying in the pocket, managing the pocket, and he's keeping his eyes down the field. It seems like we are very quick to drop our eyes and try to create. And look, I'm not saying he shouldn't be creative because that's when he's at his best. But again, if you want to be a team that goes 10-2 and makes the college football playoffs, you need to see him take a step from managing the pocket, being able to beat teams by going through his progressions and delivering accurate footballs. That needs to be a thing that we see a little bit more from LaNorris Sellers going forward.
And that instinct to do it is what I feel like they're always going to be trying to fight against. The instinct to
Yeah.
break the pocket and just run because again, like he's got the talent to do it. He makes plays doing it at times.
Yep.
You're right. There have been some moments where it's like you felt like there were wide receivers who were
Yes.
available to be hit, and his feet are either unsettled and he makes an errant throw high, or he just straight
Yep.
up drops his eyes and starts running around.
Yep.
Like those type of things, I feel like you've had more opportunities to kind of run a more efficient offense. Like we talked about, I feel like all
Yeah.
offseason, like if they can get to that, they can be a real problem, especially when you pair that with the playmaking ability he has. But you're probably right. You probably haven't seen the step you probably were looking for, at least early on in this
At
year.
least early on. And look, there could be some growing pains, right? This is a new offensive coordinator, Mike Shula, trying to get used to, hey, like, and you were hoping that the growing pains weren't going to be that extreme because Mike Shula was with this team last year. But there does seem to be a little bit of a disconnect in terms of Mike Shula asking LaNorris Sellers to do this and LaNorris Sellers just not being super comfortable with the situations Mike Shula is putting him in. I,
And that's probably where you like. I think it's fair to maybe voice some frustrations at Shula in terms of, like
yeah,
his play
I
calling,
got
not
one.
getting LaNorris Sellers out of the pocket a little bit more on just design stuff. Because you've seen some really good plays when they have just straight up designed the play to get outside the pocket,
Yes.
whether it's a read to that tight end leaking out into the flat, whether it's hitting Nick Harbor in that Virginia Tech game out wide. Like you have seen some good stuff from that. I thought against South Carolina State, they just didn't really get to any of that stuff.
Why can't that read option with the tight end coming into the flat? Why can't that be a little bit more of a staple of the offense? Right. And
Like what it was
here's
last year. It was very consistent.
and
They got to it consistently, and it was pretty effective for
and
them.
what it was in that first drive against Virginia Tech too. I mean that was nails, man. That was the prettiest drive we've seen from South Carolina all year, and I feel like we haven't gone back to the same concepts that we saw drive one against Virginia Tech. Dill, here's the biggest indictment on Coach Shula. And look, I'm not like getting up here and saying we got to fire Mike Shula or make an immediate change. That you can't do that 2 weeks through a season. 21 yards after the catch against South Carolina State. That's just not good enough. What does that tell you? 21 yards after the catch. it's telling you that we're not getting the football to our players in space. The best offenses and the best offensive coordinators excel with their playmakers after the catch. 21 yards, that is nowhere near good enough. Nick Harbor he got one touch on an end around. We're not trying to get him the football in space. I'm looking at him and saying, 6'5", 235, fastest player in the sport. Why is he not getting some quick hitters and some opportunities to operate with the football in his hands? Why are we running these long developing routes down the field when we can just get the ball out quick and let our playmakers make some plays? Because that's what we heard in fall camp, man. Like, that's all we heard was how dynamic these wide receivers are. We have not seen that outside of that deep ball to Nick Harbor week 1 against Virginia Tech. Mike Shula needs to do a better job with his playmakers in space. Needs to. Defense, really quick, ended on a positive note, because y'all know I don't like doing this. Like this, you think y'all think this is fun for the boys to get up here and just rip apart what we saw? No, absolutely not. Dill, they're banged up. Number one, like holy smokes, is this team banged up? I love what I'm seeing from the front seven. I thought Brian Thomas was the best, and that's including Dylan Stewart. Dylan Stewart was damn good last night. Brian Thomas was all over the field for South Carolina. That's one of those things, right? When you close your eyes and you envision South Carolina becoming a playoff team, it incorporates Dylan Stewart being the Dylan Stewart we know, which we've seen the first 2 weeks, and it incorporates Brian Thomas taking that step. And Dill, everything we've seen throughout the first 2 weeks is, hey, Brian Thomas has a chance to be a all SEC caliber guy. And if you get that with the production you're getting from the inside, like Nick Bear, just a dog against the run, Gabriel Brown-Law-Dindy flashing in the pass rush, Troy Pikes flashing in the pass rush, this could be a defense that can get after opposing offenses. That's where I'm feeling good if I'm a South Carolina fan.
Especially because broadly speaking, it feels like a faster unit. I mean, you see
Dude,
the
it's
speed
really
from those
fast.
linebackers. I think the defensive line, broadly speaking, is a relatively athletic unit,
Yep.
especially at the edge spot. So it's a really fast unit. Again, they're being able to create more negative plays than I think we thought they were. And certainly
Yes.
Dylan Stewart plays a huge role in that because he has been a machine for these past couple of games.
Yep.
And you need that to continue, as I would certainly expect it to. But you get that ability to create those negative plays, but also have a little bit more team speed and high end juice, possibly. Yeah, that's that's where I'm excited. If I'm a South Carolina fan, is that front seven's been infinitely better.
The blueprint of why South Carolina was so good on defense last year. It's still there in 2025. That's getting after, forcing turnovers and forcing negative plays. Like we're seeing the same version of South Carolina on defense, not really having too big of problems stopping the run either. There's a lot to like on defense, and here's the thing: we know this offense can score, man. When you have LaNorris Seller as a quarterback, you're going to be able to score. We have to see it be a little bit more efficient. Got to stay on schedule. Can't be as reliant on these backyard explosive plays. If you want to become a college football playoff team, look, South Carolina going to win 7-8 games just playing like this, right? If you want to go win 9 or 10 and make the college football playoffs, we got to find that gear on offense. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we're going to talk to y'all later. Peace.